going to the offense, on one hand, it's hard to be critical of 600 plus yards of total offense, but only 28 points produced.
Right.
I think that the wide receiver core would be the only unit on the field, offense or defense, that you couldn't find anything wrong with. Those guys are just playing lights out. Garrett Wilson seems to get open by 5 yards every time the ball's thrown his way. It just seems like he can burn any corner that's placed up against him. Of course, much was made of the discrepancy between the pass attempts, 54, and the running back rush attempts, that they possibly gave up on the run too soon. They were down by generally a score and then 2 scores and then a score, back and forth between 1 and 2 scores in the second half. So just your thoughts about the run pass ratio.
Yeah, I do. I agree that I think Ryan Day went a little pass heavy, and he's apt to do that. They weren't establishing a ton with the run game early on. Finished the game with just 128 yards on 31 carries, which is a good number of carries. But I think Ohio State could have worn Oregon down some more with the passing attempts, especially given you have a redshirt freshman quarterback making his second start. To ask him to throw the ball 54 times is a lot. And as we learned after the game, he was dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury. If you watch the game, he was flexing that shoulder quite a bit throughout the game. He said he was fine and ready to go, but that he dealt with some things throughout the week. You have a quarterback that's dealing with a bit of a bum shoulder, and you want to throw the ball 54 times. That's a tough ask in my book. I think sticking with the run to some degree, maybe you don't hit the big plays that they were able to hit in the pass game, but I do think you wear Oregon down a little bit. They did do a good job, credit to the Ducks, clogging up lanes and things like that to run through. But, when you have guys like Mayan Williams, who Ohio State really likes, Travion Henderson, who's really emerging even quicker than I thought, it seems to me you've got to get those guys involved. And, 14 and 12 carries respectively is not a bad number. But, again, 54 pass attempts is just a lot for a young quarterback to have to handle, especially in a close game.
Yeah, it goes beyond just trying to establish a balanced offense. But, yeah, you speak to it well in regards to putting that type of workload and stress level on a young quarterback against a very fine defense, despite losing a number of key players, including Kayvon Thibodeau, of course. So what was your assessment of Stroud's performance? When you throw the ball 54 times, most likely you are going to throw an interception. So everybody magnifies the pick. Of course, it wasn't in the first quarter. It was late in the game when they needed to make up a touchdown. So it does get magnified.
Yeah, the interception was not good. It came on Ohio State's last real offensive drive. He had to roll out to the right, got flushed out, and just overthrew Chris Olave. And he admitted after the game that Olave did a good job executing the scramble drill, and he just missed him. And unfortunately for Ohio State, it was third down. There was a defender there to pick the ball off. If that falls incomplete, at least you live to fight for another down. But that was poor. He did miss some throws, did miss some guys, which was true in the Minnesota game. But I still think C.J. Stroud continues to show that he's the guy for the job. There's going to be mistakes. It's this kid who is just learning the position in game. It wasn't like a Justin Fields or a Dwayne Haskins or some of other Ohio State quarterbacks of the past who had experience in games in previous years in a backup role. Stroud played in 3 games last year, barely did anything, had one big run against Michigan State, didn't throw a pass. So you knew there were going to be growing pains. I thought he played well. I think the numbers show in terms of his passing numbers, 484 yards, 3 touchdowns. I believe 484 yards is the most by any player so far this year. Small sample size, but still something. So, if Buckeye fans are questioning C.J. Stroud, if he's the guy or anything like that, I think that's a little bit reactionary. I think he's looked as good as expected. It's not like he started off with 2, cupcake style opponents. These were 2 legitimate teams in Minnesota, a Big Ten team, and obviously Oregon. So that's, getting thrown to the fire a little bit. And I think he's responded. You don't like to see the 2 interceptions he's thrown. You do like to see him make a few better decisions. But for the most part, I think you're happy with what C.J. Stroud has done.